Oh, there we go now.
Okay.
You're live now.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So welcome to this meeting of the Communities and Partnerships Committee on the 6th of August 2020. I'd like to begin by welcoming those members of the public and press who are watching the live stream of this meeting via the Council's website. Members, you are by now aware of the need to keep your video camera switched on for the duration of the meeting and to keep your microphone muted, except when I invite you to speak. Please click the raised hand function if you wish to ask a question or comment. There is always a risk that we may run into technical problems, and I would ask for your patience if we do. Should this occur, I will declare an adjournment while the fault is addressed and the public broadcast will be paused. If this is not possible to address the fault, then the meeting may be abandoned until such time as it can be reconvened. Can I remind members and officers that all virtual meetings will be recorded? So members, I will begin by calling the names of all members of the committee to establish your presence. Please confirm your presence when I call out your name. Councillor Ambrose Smith.
Present.
Thank you and welcome to the committee, David. Councillor Ashwood.
Present.
Councillor Batchelor.
Present, Chair.
Councillor Costello.
Present.
Councillor French.
Present.
Councillor Jenkins.
Present.
Welcome, David. Councillor Machini.
Present.
Councillor Nieto. I know she said she might be a little late, so I know she's trying to join us, so hopefully we'll be very shortly. Councillor Smith.
Present.
Thank you. And myself, Councillor Criswell. So we move on to item 1, apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies, Nick?
Yes, thanks, Chair. We've had apologies from Councillor Avery, who's substituted by Ambrose Smith, and Councillor Taylor.
Thank you. And Councillor Nieto, as I said, might be slightly late, so join us very shortly. Next is declarations of interest. Do members wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest? Members indicate, please, with a raised hand. Councillor French.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. March North and Waddlesea, March South and Rural, and Roman Bank and Peckover on the community grants.
This is agenda item 6.
Yes.
And do I assume, Councillor French, that you'll be abstaining on those particular items when we get to agenda item 6?
I will.
Thank you very much. If Nick can make a note of these individual ones, please. Nick, so who else have we got? Councillor Ambrose Smith. David.
Yes, hello. Item 6, number 12, Littleport Parish Council Youth Community Centre. I will abstain on that particular item.
Thank you very much. Councillor Batchelor.
Thank you, Chair. Same agenda item, Parish of Bartlow, so I'll be abstaining on that item. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any others? Okay, thank you. If you could remove your raised hands for those that have spoken, thank you very much. So that's declarations of interest. If we could please move on to item 2, minutes of the meeting held on the 2nd of July. We're being asked to approve the minutes of that meeting as the correct record. Can I please ask members, if any do not agree or have questions, to please raise their hand function now. I see none raised. Is there any dissent on approving those minutes, in which case we'll assume they're approved. I see no dissent, so thank you very much, members. We're happy to approve those minutes, and I will sign them when we have a chance to get back into a real time situation. So item 2B is the action log. We have Adrian Chapman here to just run through the action log with us. Welcome, Adrian. Thank you very much. Anything you'd like to draw attention to? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, members. Just one change since the action log was published with the agenda pack, and that relates to action 275. This is the action relating to a briefing note around services available for victims of domestic abuse and also victims of hate crime. That briefing note has now been circulated. Other than that, no further changes, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions on the action log, members? Please indicate. Okay, I see no indication. Thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 3, petitions and public questions. There were none received. So we'll move on to item 4, which is the Cambridgeshire County Council's response to COVID-19. Given the rapidly changing situation and the need to provide committee and public with the most up-to-date information possible, I've accepted this as a late report in order to allow it to contain the most up-to-date information, enabling the committee to be briefed on the current situation in relation to the Council's response to COVID-19 for those services which it is responsible. So Adrian, again, thank you, Adrian.
Thank you, Chairman. I see Councillor Nieto just joining.
Thank you. So Nick, if you could just record that Councillor Nieto is now with us. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you.
Welcome,
Apologies,
Lena.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman.
Sorry, Adrian. Lena, if you have any interest to declare, can you declare it when we get to that agenda item? Because you've just missed the interest. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So as has become traditional now, the COVID update report is split into 2 parts. First of all, relevant to the services that this committee has responsibility for. And then secondly, an overview of the work of the county-wide hub, again, which this committee has oversight for. And so I'll just pick out some very key and very brief points, if I may, just to draw your attention to those matters. So first of all, in relation to our business as usual related services, I'm pleased to say that libraries have now, for the most part, reopened, albeit in a very different way. So very part-time, very much a non-browsing kind of operation, but very much in line with the national guidance from DCMS, Department for Culture, Media and Sport, and Libraries Connected. And I think it's going very well. Response is positive. We're not at the same levels clearly as prior to close down, but I think in a good place. And if you haven't already, I draw your attention to 2.2.2. There's a hyperlink in there to a new facility that we've established with our partners on the Future Libraries Initiative programme. It's called Library Live. And it's a Q&A opportunity for any member of the public to ask our library staff any question at all, frankly, whether to do with libraries or not. So another extension of our service, our digital offer. So have a look, have a play, send in your questions, test them out. Let's see what sorts of responses you get back, but a nice facility. And also at 2.2.4, and as part of the £1.57 billion made available by government towards arts, culture and heritage recovery, the Arts Council England funding opportunities have been recently announced for contributing towards cultural recovery. And our Library Present service, which is part of our library service, will be looking at those opportunities. The deadline for applications is very tight, mid-August, but we will certainly be exploring the potential to submit an application to that funding should we feel we're able to. Moving on to Cambridgeshire Skills, again, pleased to say that as set out at 2.3, we've now published our autumn prospectus. Again, quite a different model of delivery based on what we've been doing over the last 5 months, and anticipating that there'll still need to be very much a blended offer, which will include face-to-face learning, but also digital learning as well for people that may not want to return into a classroom. So the prospectus is launched. I'm also pleased to report at 2.3.2 that we have secured our funding at the anticipated levels for the next academic year. In fact, the academic year that's just started for adult skills. It starts on the 1st of August. That contract is worth £2.3 million, which is really great news, and very much, as this committee is aware, targeted towards people that are perhaps furthest from learning or employment, or those living in more deprived communities primarily. And also I think important that service contributes towards the economic recovery agenda for those communities that have been badly affected by economic hardship as a result of the pandemic. So in a very good place, I think, there. Moving on to section 2.5, just to draw your attention to a few policy decisions that have been made to support people who have been expecting a wedding or civil partnership ceremony to take place during the pandemic. And of course, through no fault of their own, those arrangements have had to be put on hold. Often, as we know, these events are planned months, sometimes years in advance. So really terrible circumstances. And reflecting on views that this committee shared a couple of meetings ago, we thought very hard about how we can play a small part in trying to alleviate some of the pressure that those couples are finding themselves in. We can't do a huge amount, but what we can do is try to remove the worry of any unnecessary financial penalties or extra charges that might have arisen. So there are 2 or 3 arrangements that are set out in section 2.5 that remove, refund or waive charges for couples whose ceremonies have been specifically affected by the pandemic. And just asking you today to note and endorse those recommendations. And also at 2.5.4, this is very much something we wanted to do pre-pandemic anyway, and that is to support our venues much more proactively than perhaps we've done up to now. Without venues for people to get married in, aside from registry offices, we don't really have a service. And it's really vital, therefore, that we work hand in glove with our venues, hotels, wedding venues and so on. And we were planning and still are planning to develop a much closer relationship with those venues and to hold a series of events to support their economic recovery. But the gesture that we want to make towards those venues is to extend their license for holding weddings and civil partnerships by a further year. And the impact of that is set out at 2.5.4. So really a package of support that we're strongly recommending today to support couples and venues in these really difficult times. The other point just to make it in this section is at 2.5.5. I know this committee as well has had a lot of interest in the recovery of the registration service and particularly citizenship ceremonies. So really pleased to say, as set out in the report, that those can now take place. Not quite maybe the grand events that we're used to. Still have to adhere to strict social distancing, but we have stood up a service that will run over 6 days a week intensively in groups of 8 people at a time, several events a day, in order to work through the backlog and to give people the opportunity to celebrate their citizenship in the way that they normally would be able to if we were in more normal times. So good news on that front. And then finally in this section, I'll just draw your attention to 2.6.2. It will be receiving the annual coroner report in the next couple of months, but we have been talking at committee for some time about the demand pressures on the coronial service across Cambridgeshire, further compounded really by the situation during the pandemic. So I'm very pleased to report that we are holding interviews tomorrow for a new area coroner. In fact, probably 2 area coroners. We're optimistic we'll be able to appoint 2, which will very much allow the senior coroner to develop his own capacity to spread the load and to rely far less on assistant coroners who are employed on a day basis or per inquest arrangement. So this gives us some additional capacity embedded within the service. So really positive news. And I'm sure the senior coroner will update you on that in coming weeks. If I can move now, Chair, to section 2.8 and the update on the Coordination and Response Hub. So this is where I breathe a big sigh in that we've reached a bit of a major milestone. On the 1st of August, as you know, the National Shielding Programme was paused. We have been working with the 32,000 or so people across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough who have been shielding, or at least those that have wanted our support, to ensure that they know what that entails, know how to continue to look after themselves, because clearly the pandemic is still with us, and also to make sure that anybody that still wants our support can continue to receive that support. Remarkably, only about 150 people now are needing or saying they're needing support on an ongoing basis. Everybody else, we've been able to work with our district and city council colleagues or local parish, town council and mutual aid groups that have been set up in communities to make sure that they're in touch with those arrangements. And the nature of support that we're continuing to provide for this 150 people or so is more around emotional and well-being type support. So I think in a very strong position. I think I've reported before that the response from the shielded population in relation to going back outside is very mixed. Several still wanting to stay indoors, still very concerned. And what we've made clear to those people and to all of our partners is that the hub isn't going anywhere. We're still here, and should anybody in that 32,000 require any support at any point going forwards, they will know how to reach us and we'll be able to stand that support up. The programme is paused, and that's a specific term used by government, which clearly implies that it may need to be reinstated. And we have been in discussion with the government around what a future shielding programme might look like. And we are due to receive, as described at 2.8.7, a framework document shortly, which will set out how local shielding arrangements will operate. I think the intention is to try to avoid clearly a national shielding programme needing to be stood up again, and instead align shielding arrangements to any local outbreaks that might arise. You'll be familiar with the situation in Peterborough at the moment, and higher than average infection rates there. That clearly could happen anywhere in our county. So we need to be ready to support communities that are affected in that situation, including the shielded population. So our attention now as a hub is focused on setting up those arrangements, making sure that anybody that is either shielding or needing to shield in a local lockdown or is asked to self-isolate because they're contact traced is getting the support that they need. And the document before you sets out how we're working to set up those arrangements. And they're summarised at 2.8.12. So the offer that we're making to anybody that is required to self-isolate or shield is provision of information and advice, including befriending support, access to food and other essential supplies, the sort of practical support that we take for granted if we're not self-isolating, literally walking your dog or some basic outdoor chores, and then some financial support if absolutely necessary. If, for example, you are somebody that has a 0 hours contract, but you're asked to self-isolate, we need to ensure we remove barriers that prevent you from doing so. So all of those arrangements will be in place very shortly, and will support, as I say, both any future shielding population or those people who are tested positive for COVID or who are contact traced and are required to self-isolate for 14 days. And then finally, just to draw your attention at section 3 to the financial implications, the table has been updated. A combination, as reported here before, of lost income, additional costs and service demand pressures. The figures do include the value of staff that have been redeployed, so whose salaries are covered by core budgets but have been redeployed to support hub activity. So just to point that out there, which is why the figure is so high. I think, Chair, that's everything I wanted to cover today. Happy, of course, to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Adrian, and thank you for all you've been doing and your team, and for some of the things you've just outlined, which go over and above what the government's offer is to give additional local support. Thank you. You also referenced the local volunteers who continue to be a very valuable asset to us. So thanks to those, obviously, acknowledging their help as well. So members, anyone have any questions or comments they wish to make, please indicate. Very comprehensive report we've had, thank you. Cannot see anyone indicating. So
3 people are indicating, Chair.
Yes, I can now see. Thank you, Lisa. Councillor French.
Thank you. Yes, thanks, Adrian. That was a very comprehensive report. I particularly welcome 2.3 2.5.1 with regard to dropping the charges, that really was a concern for a lot of people. I know it's costing the council £24,000, but I think, you know, we just have to suffer that, because some of these people, you know, are on borderline, and although it's not a lot of money, it is a lot of money to them. So thank you for working on that.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank you,
French.
Councillor.
Councillor Machini. Lisa.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I have two questions on two sections on the report, and please do bear with me because my trackpad is really bad while I scroll. The first question is about the point 2.5.4, where it is said that, you know, some of our wedding and civil partnership venues are having trouble because, well, presumably lost income and financial problems. I was just wondering, should any venues actually end up having significant problems, would it be possible to get more information about what those problems are and what we can do to help them, if anything, and to have a list, well, basically work out how many of our venues are going to have these kind of problems, potentially which they are, assuming it's not a problem to identify them, and as I said, what we can do, because it seems if we have government money to support us through the COVID recovery, this seems like the kind of thing that we really should be spending that money on. So how much money is needed and whether we have it. So that's my first question. And my second question is in point 2.8.8, at which I will get now. There we go. So I'm very glad that we're carrying on with effectively, you know, help for the shielding program and stuff. I mean, and you know, thank you, Adrian. I will say this now, and this is overarching comment. I mean, the report is fabulous. It's really, really very informative. I was very interested to see the figures, and what I was very interested to note was that the number of people that are shielding is going down by a tiny, I mean, 50 people out of 30,000, which seems to be quite a tiny, you know. But the rest of the stats, you know, total number of digital forms resolved requesting help, of which, you know, help relating to food, help relating to medicine, emotional help and well-being. Quite a lot of these numbers are going up. So I was just wondering if we were looking into the kind of help these people are needing and whether they're getting it. Because financial and problems in getting food and getting medicine is something that we're going to expect as a long-term effect of this crisis. It's not something that's just going to go away. And we're not talking this month or next month, we're talking probably the next few years. So I was wondering if anybody was looking at these statistics and if there was any more information to be had at this point and how much of it we can help with. But, you know, thank you very much for everything else. It's great that the work is carrying on.
Thanks, Elisa. Adrian, would you like to respond to those points?
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you very much, Councillor Machini. Much appreciated. So to deal with the first question, absolutely, we can share whatever detail we manage to find. I mean, this is very much in the spirit of us building a much stronger relationship with our venues. I think on average, typically there are around 75 or so venues across our county at any one time, and that's not a huge number actually for a county our size. So losing even one of those could well present a problem, and not least of all if you're a couple who've been planning a ceremony for a year, 2 years, and then that venue falls into difficulty. So very topically, the chairman, myself, Peter Gell, who's the assistant director in the meeting today, and the registration services manager have been discussing this for some time, and in fact met yesterday afternoon to discuss the ways in which we can reach out to those venues proactively, and to first of all determine their status and find out what their situation is. Secondly, to make sure that they are fully aware of all of the national funding that is available to those venues, and thirdly, to identify ways in which we can provide bespoke support. As that work progresses, I'd be very happy to share that with members, particularly relating to the patches within which you operate, the district council areas within which you operate. That would be very helpful. And I think if we can point those venues to any additional support, I know that they will be very grateful. I think at this stage, we're not really 100% certain of the full extent of the challenge. I'm not sure the venues themselves are yet, because it's an emerging picture, but we're very much alive to it. As I say, discussing it frequently. On your second point, the data, yes, demand continues, or had continued to grow. The difference between the last shielded number of 19,058 and the new, the total shielding number of 32,305 and the old number is actually a net change. In other words, people get removed from the list all the time and people get added to the list all of the time. It's not a static list. So it slightly hides the true reality. And therefore, what that means is that a lot of new people have been more recently identified as needing to shield by their clinicians, because maybe they've become ill during the pandemic, and therefore that's leading to an increase in demand. A lot of the demand that you've referred to in the forms that are submitted are coming from people that have been more recently added to the shielded list. That said, there's no question that there is still a need out there to support people in different ways. And one of the bullet points describes the breakdown of the type of help that's being requested, whether it's food, emotional support, household maintenance, and so on. And so there are 2 or 3 things that we're doing and will be asking this committee to oversee. First of all, the way that we're redirecting our efforts under the Think Communities programme to continue to create and deliver a unified approach across our public sector system to support the most vulnerable people is hugely critical at this time. So building on the work we've been doing over the last 5 months, but making it business as usual. Second, and in my separate report in a second, we'll be talking about the work on food poverty and food security. And that's not just really for shielded people, that's for anybody that finds themselves in difficulty, both short-term and long-term, and unable to afford food. And then thirdly, again, in the Service Director report, the work that we're now doing in a refocused way on tackling social mobility issues, which will very much provide practical support for people the sorts of people that have been reaching out to us in the hub. And all of those things we will bring through this committee for oversight and direction and input. But and you know, as ever, any suggestions for anything further that you think we should be doing, we would be very, very grateful for. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Adrian. Councillor Costello, you have a question. Adela?
Yes, it might seem a bit of a silly one, but the way the government imposes quarantine restrictions sort of out of hand, for people who get stuck abroad and then have to find when they get back, they have to self-isolate for 14 days. Are we in a position to support them? Do we offer them support? And how do they know how to access that?
Thank you, Adela. Adrian?
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Costello. I don't think that's a silly question at all. I think that's very much at the forefront of a lot of people's minds right now. So absolutely, the work we're doing to support anybody in any situation that needs to self-isolate, including those that are quarantining, is our focus right now. And as described, that will include, because if you're in that situation, you know, you have to come straight home and that's it. You won't have time to go shopping. If a local outbreak happens and you're suddenly told, or rather, if you're tested positive or contact traced, you're not given notice, you have to go home. And that's really, really important to protect our population. So we have made it clear that anybody at all facing that kind of situation, regardless of circumstance, will be able to benefit from the support in place from the hub network. Now, it's always a challenge, I think, to make sure everybody knows how to access all of these services, but we will be saturating social media traditional media, using community leaders, working with district and city councils and parish councillors to make it abundantly clear how people can find out about that kind of support. It's available now, and there is already something on each district council website and many other places that describes how that support can be provided. And I'll very happily provide a note to all members of the county council that you can then use to share those contact details with residents in your divisions. And it's really important that people take up that offer in order to protect the wider population. So it's a very strong yes, and any help you can give us to spread the word would be fantastic.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Councillor Batchelor, Henry.
Thank you, Chairman. Virtually identical question to Adela's, but sort of following on from that, my question was more around whether there'd be support available for employees that would have to quarantine as a result of being abroad. And I know some employers in that situation insist that the employees would have to take that time as unpaid leave. So the question was sort of following on from Adela's, is there any support available either locally or from central government? But I think you may have just answered that, Adrian.
Thanks, Councillor Batchelor. So yeah, just to extend the response, very much so, and perhaps focusing on the employee and employer side of the support package. There's several things we are trying to implement, and several have already been implemented. With employers, first of all, things such as topping up statutory sick pay that enables an employee to remain at home basically on full earnings. Some of our employers, as you know, receive workers who arrive on a bus in the morning. If through testing, one of those workers is tested positive and that result is announced during their shift, we're trying to provide transport for that worker, for the employer to use to get that worker safely home during their shift. And for, as I mentioned, 0 hours workers in particular, we're particularly anxious about that group because if they don't go to work, they can't earn money. So looking at how we might support them, we'd have to do that very carefully and very cautiously, but very keen to be flexible about that. We're also working with DWP, the Department for Work and Pensions, to try to manage benefit advances to people who find themselves in a situation. The number of universal credit claimants, as shared with the Social Mobility Group recently, has increased significantly. So DWP are working very well with us to provide rapid emergency advance payments to people who, again, find themselves in those situations. So part of the package, and it will evolve and grow, we'll be in this situation, I think, for some considerable time.
Okay, so the message is just to ask.
100%.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Councillor French, Jan, you wanted to come back. No, nothing from you, Jan. Okay. Any other questions, anyone? Okay, I see nobody else indicating, so we'll just move to the recommendations. Members, please. We're being asked to note progress made to date in responding to the impact of coronavirus. Note and endorse the support provided to couples whose marriage or civil partnership ceremonies have been impacted by the pandemic. And note and endorse the support being provided to marriage and civil partnership venues. Please indicate any dissent, members. Otherwise, I'll assume that you're happy with those recommendations. I see nobody indicating, so thank you very much, members. We'll accept those recommendations as approved. In which case, we move on to item 5, report of the service. Adrian and I have agreed that this committee covers such a wide range of work streams, the progress of which doesn't necessarily require an individual agenda item, but it's only right that the committee should have full sight of the work that's going on and have an opportunity to scrutinise and ask questions. So the suggestion is that we have a regular report covering many of those work streams so that we have full sight of them, and today's is the first of those reports, and hopefully you'll agree that that's a good idea in the future. So thank you very much, Adrian. If you'd like to present that wide-ranging report, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies, members, it's me again, I'm afraid, and I'll try and be brief. Yes, as the Chairman says, this is a new style Service Director report, which captures the key themes of work that we're engaged in. And again, I'll just draw your attention to some key points. Clearly the main thrust and focus for this committee is on developing and delivering our really ambitious transformational Think Communities approach. And I think we have developed that at pace over the last year or so with partners and have got it to a very good place. However, I think what has happened over the last 4 or 5 months is that has been tested in real time. And I have no doubt at all that it's as a result of the amazing partnerships that we've got across our public sector system, with our voluntary sector partners, with town and parish councils, and many, many others, that has enabled us to achieve what we've collectively achieved across Cambridgeshire during the pandemic. So really what we've been doing is delivering a Think Communities approach in practice. And what the report describes is how we want to take what are positive features of a terrible situation and turn those into business as usual practice across our system. We don't want to lose the ability to share data with our partners. We don't want to lose the ability to make quick decisions about situations that people are finding themselves in. We want to be able to identify and support the most vulnerable people, including those that aren't yet known to services. Often once they get known to services, it's sometimes too late. So it's for us really about working hard, building on all of the features of the work we've been doing, building on the principles that we'd agreed pre-pandemic and normalising those behaviours going forwards. So section 2.2 just sets out our thinking around this and how we propose to continue with forums such as our community reference group, which was stood up as part of the response phase to the pandemic. But in the meeting this week with 35 or so different partners, they agreed that they want to continue working as a group to problem solve really knotty issues. To bring it to life, to bring Think Communities to life, it is a difficult concept sometimes for people to grasp. The approach that we are choosing to take is set out at 2.2.11, page 13 of your report. And this is to focus primarily on 8 very significant, quite far-ranging themes, but areas of work we know are going to be a priority for this council or our partners, that we think collectively through a Think Communities unified approach we can make significant inroads in. And so those 8 themes are set out there: supporting the COVID outbreak control process we've already discussed, support for carers, ensuring carers remain healthy and those that they're caring for remain healthy and well, support for older people, increasing the use of technologically enabled care. Tech is easier to say, and that's about supporting our adults committee with keeping people home longer, support for care leavers and young people who are NEET, tackling food poverty and security, addressing social immobility, and implementing place-based commissioning. They of themselves are quite significant, but actually as a collective provide a real focus for delivery of Think Communities going forwards. And what we'll be doing over subsequent meetings through the Service Director report is bringing you the latest on each of those 8 core themes of delivery. And of course, we can add to those as committee directs over the next few months and years. Linked to that work is the food poverty work, and we've already talked about this in the COVID report, so I won't go into great detail, but just to describe the work we're doing here. It is in 2 stages. We are initially focused on ensuring that everybody in Cambridgeshire has access to food and essential supplies over the summer months, and we've set aside funding from a DEFRA grant available to each district and city council to supplement the local offer. We've also worked with our district and city council colleagues to map existing local provision. There's an awful lot of fantastic work going on during the pandemic and beforehand around giving people access to food through things like food banks and food recycling schemes and other models. and so we've made sure that people can be directed there. So lots of short-term support in place. And then secondly, we're really interested in how we can prevent people from falling into food poverty or food insecurity longer term. And that's about trying to create a single food strategy or food system that makes sense, from the supply of affordable, healthy food through to making sure people are earning enough money to be able to afford that food. So all of that work set out in the document. It does move me nicely into section 2.4, which is a summary of the work so far of the Social Mobility Working Group, formerly known as the Tackling Poverty and Multiple Deprivation Working Group, which met on the 20th of July and covered both an update on the existing social mobility action plan and commitment document that this council has signed off, but also identified 4 additional priorities of focus, and they're set out in section 2.4.5. And they are ensuring people adversely impacted by COVID are not disadvantaged, building a system-wide approach to food poverty and food security, hence the link to the previous item, ensuring that the Think Communities Unified approach provides opportunities for direct community engagement in ways that make sense to residents, and ensuring that we build an understanding of and implement solutions to address the specific impacts of COVID and social immobility on older people and adults with learning disabilities. So 4 additional priorities alongside the work that's already underway in relation to social mobility across the county. And I'm grateful to members who form part of that working group for your commitment to that work. And then 2 further final sections. First of all, on Cambridgeshire Skills, we covered a little bit of an update on this in the COVID report, but I would just want to make you aware of some changes to the operating model for the coming year. We've, as described in the report, seen a reduction in learner attendance of 95% during the pandemic. So a real significant impact on our traditional Cambridgeshire Skills offer. We've rebuilt through the new prospectus, as I've already described, a new offer which will ensure that we can meet our targets, contractual targets, in the next academic year. But we are struggling with our community-based learning venues, because many of those venues, traditionally community centres, village halls and so on, simply aren't able to establish COVID secure arrangements that can accommodate class sizes that we need to accommodate. So we have agreed with the primary funder, the Combined Authority, that we can increase the amount of subcontracted adult skills delivery from 20%, a cap of 20%, to 40% for the next year, which would enable us to meet our contractual targets whilst maintaining quality, but will mean that other learning providers commissioned by Cambridgeshire Skills can use their own venues, assuming they are COVID secure. So that means we won't need to see a dip in provision for adult learners across Cambridgeshire at a time when really they need to access skills development to enhance their employability, help with CVs, help get back on the job market, or indeed improve their employment earnings. So that's an important change. And then finally, section 2.6, a brief overview of a new white paper on domestic abuse and sexual violence requirements. It does place new duties on upper tier councils, but as you know, this committee being responsible for domestic abuse and sexual violence, we already have a very effective partnership board in place across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, co-chaired with the constabulary. And we are anticipating being able to fulfil our duties, or most of our duties, through that board. We will need to make sure that this committee is satisfied and assured that our statutory functions, when they're made clear and we receive the new guidance, are being fulfilled. But I think we're in a strong position to use our existing frameworks. Having said that would be brief, apologies, that probably was rather longer than I anticipated, but happy as ever to take any questions.
Thank you, Adrian. Very comprehensive report, which I'm sure members found valuable. So Questions or comments, members? Councillor Nieto, Lena.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Adrian. That was yeah, very comprehensive. It just I think yeah, you're very busy in a good way. I would just wanted to ask, with the skills area, are we not able to provide online courses, or some of the courses is there not provision for them to be online? Do they have to all be class-based? Are we not encouraging that? And then the other point was on the social mobility working group. You know, we have kind of this internal working group, but are we maybe it's already happening, but are we liaising with third sector or other organizations that are already kind of trying to tackle similar issues, that maybe we should be joining forces, so that it is more kind of a joined up approach countywide than just us trying to do something on our own? Thank you.
Thanks, Lena. Adrian.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Nier. So absolutely, online learning has become a new norm actually for a lot of people. And so the new prospectus includes a huge proportion of online learning availability for people that wish to learn in that way. It's what we call blended learning. Some courses will be online only, some will be classroom only, and some will be a combination of both. And even with online learning, you know, we know that people want to be able to have one-to-one contact with a tutor, which can still be by phone or indeed Zoom, as we're using today. So I think one of the things the pandemic has shown us is that people can adapt to different ways of learning, and actually, you know, our success rates during the pandemic are very, very positive and very significant. And so that's why we're continuing with that model. So take a look at the prospectus. Hopefully you'll see a good range of choices and options there for people to learn in ways that make sense to them, and also at times that make sense to them. On the work on tackling social mobility, absolutely. I will stress actually that the last thing we want to do and will do is replicate some of the amazing work that's happening already, led by often many of the district and city councils, but also happening at voluntary sector and community group level. But we do have a statutory requirement to provide a child poverty strategy, but notwithstanding that, absolutely agree that the best way to achieve solutions for people that face social immobility is to do that in a very joined up way. So under the spirit of the unified approach, Think Communities model, we will be working in the kind of launched working group with many partners to see how best to take the most local approach to tackling social mobility. We know it probably isn't best that the county council almost controls the solutions around social mobility, but that actually we stand alongside groups at a more local level who can provide much more relevant and bespoke support suited to that place, suited to those conditions and those circumstances. So it's very early days, but that's very much at the heart of our intent.
Thank you, Adrian. Councillor Machini.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much, Adrian. This was a fantastic report to read, and please, yes, let's have it all the time. If I can make just a very, very tiny suggestion, I'm hoping that this will be a very much sort of alive and growing document, which we will, you know, but there is a risk sometimes when you've got something that superficially looks like the same document over and over, that, you know, like highlights will be, which I know that there is absolutely no question that there will be extremely important changes month to month. But in order to help us track them and not get lost, if you could have like maybe a highlight section at the top, or a sort of, I mean, when I was doing my PhD, my supervisor always asked my reports to start with, what did I do since the last report? And he was very, he was quite strict about that. And, you know, I was thinking perhaps a sort of like, just to help us focus on what's changing, which, you know, so that we can, you know, we can focus as appropriate going forward. But this is a fabulous way to start, and it's, you know, a very, very good report. Two things. So I was thinking, this follows on rather neatly from what Lena was saying in terms of online learning and etc. Are we focusing either, see now I'm going to struggle to find a place again, either in section 2.2.11 or in the skills section? Are we focusing on trying to get statistics on how many people we don't have online in the county and whether or not we need to have a program to expand online reach? I mean, I'm thinking a lot about adults and people that might, you know, feel cut off in that sense. And unfortunately, I know quite a lot of people like that myself in my division. And one of the problems is that when you talk to them and you're like, you know, we're now doing these things online, we're now doing these things online, why don't you come online? They will tell you, no, it's not for me, I don't want to. Which is completely not, you know, we should not accept that answer in that sense, because, you know, that creates more problems than it did before. So I was wondering if we had anything we could do with specific regard to that, because I think that should be an area of focus. In terms of Cambridge Skills, I read that section and I was like, where's the mayor? Where's the mayor? How much work are we, because that's his job, some of it. I was just wondering, how much work are we doing with the combined authority, and how much of their adult skills are we sort of cooperating with? Because I remember them coming, I mean, this was a couple of years ago, actually, if not more. They came and gave a presentation to this committee. And this was when I was here the first time. So I think it was actually probably about 3 years ago. Maybe we could have them again, because I think it would be, you know, it would be a very good sort of way to see how we can go forward together and cooperate. Thank you.
Thanks, Elisa. Just a quick comment from me as chair of Cambridgeshire Skills. Of course, the combined authority is the fund holder, but they don't do service delivery. So we receive the funding from them, but we're not in competition with them in any way, because they don't actually provide that service. They provide the money so that others can provide that service. But I'll let Adrian pick up on that and other issues. Adrian, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Councillor Machini. So just to expand on Councillor Criswell's comment there, the other key point here is that having been funded almost solely by the Combined Authority to deliver Cambridgeshire Skills, we are delivering to the Combined Authority's skills strategy. So our delivery has to meet the skills strategy's objectives and requirements. So very, very firmly embedded we helped write that skills strategy as it happens, which puts us in a very good position through collaboration, but yes, very much embedded. And I'm sure we can, if committee wishes, invite along the skills lead from the Combined Authority, perhaps at the same time as we present a regular report on skills to committee. Very happy to arrange that. As I started on the last point, I'll carry on in reverse order. So the point around digital connectivity is absolutely key here, and not just in relation to skills, of course. We know that people who are digitally active often have huge additional benefits than those that aren't. So it can help tackle loneliness and isolation, and we've seen that through the pandemic. It can help people maintain online banking facilities, which often gives better rates. They can access better deals for shopping and so on. So it is really important, but not necessarily essential. So part of the work of the working group will be to understand the extent of online access and the quality of that access, and we'll be working with Cambridgeshire Connected and others to understand that, and the Skills Service has done a lot of work on this in preparation for its skills strategy. And as I say, it's important we offer a mix for all of our services, and so libraries, for example, reopening, albeit very part-time, present a huge opportunity for people that aren't digitally active or digitally confident to access services via their local library. You may recall a meeting or two ago, we presented the idea of the bus type vehicle that will be commissioned and made available to communities across our county, particularly those that are isolated or more disadvantaged. People that may not want to access services in traditional ways will be able to get on board that vehicle, which will be fully digitally equipped and able to access support in that way. And there is, as part of the COVID recovery work, lots of work happening around economic hardship for households that have been affected by COVID. And again, that group, which is led by Oliver Morley, one of the directors of Huntingdonshire District Council, on behalf of the whole of the Local Resilience Forum, is looking at that kind of digital connectivity issue as part of its work. So we can bring all of this through to the working group in the coming meetings that have been scheduled to make sure that we're focusing our services in exactly the right way going forwards. And just to say thank you very much for the suggestion on the highlights section. I love that idea, and I will shamelessly use it going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Adrian. Councillor Batchelor, Henry.
Thanks, Chair. Just a quick, more of a personal question to yourself, Adrian. Obviously, this is an extremely comprehensive report, and it's absolutely chock full of detail, which we're very, very thankful for. As was the previous report on the council's response to COVID. I just want to ask you, I mean, if we were asking you to write one of these reports every month on top of the COVID report, just want to make sure we're not asking too much of you, Adrian. I don't want to burn you out, writing these reports on top of everything else that you're doing and managing this situation.
Thank you very much. If I took my only reason I'm wearing glasses is because of my bloodshot eyes. So no, seriously, that's very kind of you. And but actually, for me, it kind of makes sense. I think the problem I've got is, and what kind of worries me is that there's an awful lot of good stuff happening that often isn't exposed to committee because, as the chairman said, it isn't often significant enough to warrant its own report. And it's, I think, going to be a helpful way of pulling that together. I can use it internally for my own leadership team and others as well. So, I'm sure the chairman will continue to look after me, and I can make sure that I flag with him any issues of pressure. But thank you very much. I appreciate the support.
Thank you, Adrian. And yes, thank you, Henry. It's it is a key consideration. I meet Adrian every day, so I know how hard he's working. But the very nature of our committee is that this work is going is happening across the whole of our authority and indeed our partners. So a lot of these reports need to have visibility elsewhere, don't they, Adrian? So it is important that we bring this together and that this committee has sight of it. But yes, there may be occasions when there is no progress that Adrian can leave certain elements out. So, but yes, very valuable point. Thank you. So I can't see any other questions or people indicating. So we'll move to the recommendations, members, which is to note and comment on the progress made to date in relation to the various work streams described in this report, and to approve the provision of a similar service director report to all future committee meetings. So any objections, please indicate, members. Lots of positive reaction to this report, so hopefully there won't be. No, I can't see anybody indicating, so we'll assume those recommendations are approved. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, members.
Thank you, Adrian. So now we move on to item 6, the Communities Capital Fund, endorsement of the recommendations of the scoring panel, and welcome Ian Phillips.
Thank you, Chair, and morning, everybody. Well, it's been a really busy time for the Capital Fund since we last met. I'm really pleased that we've got 16 applications in front of you that are recommended for approval, and a good mix of different projects, some small, some larger, and spread right across the county. So our first one is Spencer Mill in Soham. So Viva the application. Members are probably familiar with this project. They're requesting £498,317 to redevelop the former Spencer Mill site, which has been derelict for over 30 years, into an arts and community hub for the town. So Viva have been working on this for quite some time and have raised over 1.9 million in match funding from 40 different funders, both locally and nationally. So they've been very successful at getting this project off the ground and near to completion. The final funding that hopefully the committee will approve today will be enough to see the project come to fruition and open hopefully by about March, April of next year. members might note that there's already been a loan of 300,000 from the county council to Viva. I just wanted to make it clear that this funding is on top of that loan, not to replace it or to be used in any form of repayment at all. Our next project is over at Caulfield. The parish council are requesting 198,000 to upgrade and extend their village hall, which was built in 2013, but has been a victim of its own success, really. It's seen demand grow from community use right across the area and for other villages. Very successful and popular facility within the area, and the parish council are providing 60,000 to support the additional build costs. Our next project is at Stretton. Parish council are requesting 500,000. They talk about in their application about their existing parish rooms are built back in the 1960s and haven't been refurbished since then. They're in very poor repair and really don't meet the needs of a modern community. So the intention is to build a new village hub, which over £1 million of match funding will be provided from the parish council, and again we'll just be able to help them provide services and facilities for their population, particularly many of whom are older and perhaps struggle with mobility to access different activities and services from the wider area. Fenstanton Village Trust are also requesting for 500,000 for a similar project. Fenstanton is a growing village that hasn't had a community hall or village hall since 2005, when the previous building was closed. Although there's a church within the village, it doesn't really meet the needs of that community. It's too small and it's oversubscribed. So as part of a new development of housing, there's an area of land that's been earmarked for a village hub to be built, and the trust there have already raised 200,000 themselves. And they also have a contribution of 170,000 from a mix of the parish council and district council. Hilton Village Hall was a much smaller project, but one I think that will also have quite a significant impact within the community. They're only asking for £10,000 to support their village hall, but what they want to do is upgrade and make their building much more modern and take advantage of latest technology for audio and visual equipment and system, which will give them much more opportunity to open up to all sorts of new activities, perhaps attracting some younger people to use the facility, which already has 500 bookings a year, from not just from Hilton but from the local surrounding area as well. I think that will make a big difference to them. Eversden Parish Council are looking for £20,000. This is to improve their children's playground, which, as you can see, was built over 20 years ago and just needs upgrading, really. And one of the things they talk about is their desire to improve play equipment for disabled children to use, and they're providing match funding of 15,000 to support that project. Wisbech Town Council have applied for 150,000 to really do a comprehensive upgrade of their marketplace. This will see a master plan, really, effectively for the area, remove some of the vehicle access, pedestrianise the area, and invest into new facilities and repaving, decorative features, just to make that marketplace a even more attractive and vibrant place for the town, which will help to provide services, but also to give people a route for local shopping, but also places where festivals and different social activities can take place and become a real hub for the town. The Town Council are providing 50,000 towards that project. Hoxton Parish Council are well underway with their project to provide a new village hub for their community. Over the last few years that they've seen their community double from 300 to 600 houses, and there was absolutely no community facility at all for for people to meet or to come together, really. So over £1 million of match funding has already been committed from the parish council and from local fundraising, And this funding of 88,855 will just get that last bit of the building complete and will allow for the building to be fully kitted out. So when it's complete, it can open straight away and be used by the community. And we're hoping that that might be able to open in the next couple of months, sort of September onwards. Brampton Parish Council, 50,000. This is to develop a men's sheds project, which the research of the parish councillors really found that men within their community aren't really taking advantage of the different activities and social events that are available within the village, and often therefore can be quite isolated and lonely. And that they've provided quite a lot of support to say that people in their community would value the use of a men's shed and think it would contribute quite well to what they want to do within their village. 50,000 requested, and the parish council are providing 30,000 in match funding, with a further 5,000 coming from their village hub. Stapleford and Shelford have a youth initiative or are requesting £12,000 to upgrade and smarten up their new community youth building, which they've taken on from the parish council fairly recently. This will allow for new flooring and walls and ceiling, and just make it a more inviting and smarter place for young people to come and socialise and take part in different activities. They do quite a lot of work really between the ages of 10 and 18 years old, particularly for young people who are marginalised or disadvantaged within the community. So I think quite a small amount of funding will really make a large impact for that community. Again, a similar project here. So Christchurch, their community centre, 15,000 requested, and this is to provide a covered patio area to the rear of the community centre, or just increase their capacity to use their outdoor space, provide a waterproof area, and particularly to allow electrical items to be used, and just make that a much more attractive facility for the community to use for a whole range of social and leisure events. Match funding has been provided of 7,500 from the community centre. Littleport are requesting from their parish council 406,000, and they talk about in their application that there are currently within the village no appropriate places for a youth club to meet. We know that the club that they do have already is very successful and supporting 150 children, and there's a huge demand for that to expand and to provide more support and services for young people, not just within Littleport, but from the surrounding areas. So a new community hub will not only provide services for young people, and I know that the parish council are keen to employ some outreach workers to support some of those activities, but it'll be a much broader facility that can offer community services such as adult skills and a cafe, a pop-up library. So there'll be a hub really for the whole village that will make a considerable difference. The parish council are supporting with £58,500 towards the project. St Mary's Church in Bartlow are requesting 81,000. Bartlow's a very small village, but it has very few community facilities, and it relies very much on the church as being its hub for the village. And whilst it's quite successful at doing that, it's not really suitable for a meeting venue. There's a lack of kitchen and toilet facilities, which restricts what they can do as a church and as a community. So recently the church has acquired some additional land, acquired some disused stables, which is proposed to convert into a toilet and kitchen area and just provide a hub for the village, which will be able to be used for a much broader range of activities. Even though it's a small village, local residents have been very successful in their fundraising and have already contributed 15,000 towards the cost of the project. Melbourne Parish Council at 65,000. They're looking again to extend their community hub, which opened in 2014 and has proved to be extremely successful in supporting its community. It's open 6 days a week and provides a really broad range of services and activities for the village, including a library, a cafe, a meeting room, and a time bank. But they say over the last year and a half, they've seen their footfall double, and therefore they can't meet the demand of local people for access. So this project, it match funded with 93,600 from the Parish Council, will extend the building and allow more facilities to take place. For example, the local GP is keen to take outreach classes there and provide services around obesity and smoking. Girton Parish Council are requesting 275,000 and will provide an extension to the pavilion, which already does a lot of work within the village around sporting and leisure activities, but again is just outgrown its use and is unable to fully meet the needs of the community. So this will see the hall extended, feature a stage and additional seating. So we'll be able to provide just a broad range of different activities for that community. And match funding of 275,000 is being provided by the Parish Council in support of the project. Our last project for today is from Fenland District Council, and they're requesting 75,000 for a series of different improvements for West End Park in March. So a range of different activities that they want to do, which will benefit lots of different sections of the community. So this includes improving the surface for park runners, improving the access and tarmac path across the park so people can get to the bandstand, particularly people with poor mobility issues which struggle at the moment, improving the junior play area and increasing the number of pieces of equipment from 9 to 20, and fencing off the skate park, which is already exists and recently was upgraded, but could just do with a bit more safety and security around the site. So it's a very popular park within the town, and match funding of 10,000 has been committed from a mixture of the district and town councils. So they're the recommended projects for committee to consider today. And I thought I'd just give an overview of where we are with the fund in general. And since we've launched, we've had 63 applications received. The fund is closed now for anything new. We've had 9.7 million requested, and including the projects I've mentioned to date, that's 29 projects that have either been approved or recommended for approval, given a total of 4,086,284 if everything is approved today has been allocated. So that would mean we have a balance of 913,000 still to be allocated to projects, and I'm expecting to come back to you in September committee with another set of projects with recommendations for your approval. So absolutely appreciate that. That's quite a quick canter through the projects that we've got today for approval. I'm very happy to take any questions if anybody has any, or if anyone wants any further details. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. I'm aware that Councillor Nieto, you were indicating from the beginning of this item, so just allow you to speak first, please.
Thank you, Chair. No, I just wanted to let you know that I have a conflict of interest because, well, not a conflict of interest, but I represent Hardwick Division and the Eversons. I represent the Eversons, so I just wanted that to be noted. Thank you.
So you'll abstain on that one project?
Yes.
Leaning. Yeah, thank you. Yes, and of course others mentioned their abstentions at the beginning of the meeting. So. So yes, thank you, members. Really pleased to see such a huge range of items that will benefit communities across the county. Of course, these have all been looked at in greater detail by a cross-party member working group, and thereby not all were recommended for approval, but these are the ones, as Ian said, that have been recommended for approval. So open to any questions or comments, members. Councillor Jenkins. David.
Thank you, Chair. Some excellent projects here, and it was good to see them summarised in the paper and then described further by Ian. One of the things that just puzzles me, though, is that the panel meets, but there's no link to any panel meeting, any minutes of the panel meetings. So I'm a bit puzzled about transparency of process here. Because we're dishing out quite a lot of money. It'd be nice to have evidence that it is being done so with due process and a due degree of objectivity. I am sure that it is, but there will be some people that ask questions. So I'm surprised that there is not that clear thread from the panel into these papers explaining exactly how these projects were determined.
Thank you, David. And of course, the members of your group were on the panel, so they're able to answer any questions. But perhaps in the final report, Ian, for September, that process can be described in a little more detail, if that helps.
Chair, if I may respectively say, it's not for members of my group that I am concerned. It is for Joe Public out there that wants to see the process whereby people are making decisions about the money that the council has very creditably made available to these funds. And, you know, Ian explained that there were 63 applications and 29 approved. Would have been good to see that in the paper. Some obviously were excluded. I don't know whether they were ever explained why they were excluded, but just putting this thing into the public domain would assure everybody that the job is being done as well as I'm sure it is.
Okay, thank you, David. Ian, would you like to elaborate on any of those points?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So just perhaps to reassure you, Councillor, we published a set of criteria on which each application is scored, and I'm very happy to provide further information on that, and perhaps in the report for the next committee, I'll provide that in greater detail. So each application is scored by the member panel. We reach a consensus for each of the criteria, and we have a pass mark of 60% in order for an application to be recommended to this committee for approval. So what perhaps I could do for the next meeting is set that out in a bit more detail and provide greater clarity of how projects are scored and how the process has worked.
It's not so much the criteria I'm interested in, because I'm sure they exist and I'm sure it's being done properly, but it's the actual scoring which would be of interest to the world.
Well, I have all of that detail, so I'm very happy to provide that.
Super.
Thank you. Councillor French, Jan.
Thanks, Steve. I think, you know, since this started, I think this is an absolutely wonderful idea. It's really quite sad we're coming to the end of it. We've got 913,000 left to spend. It would be nice to see the others, but hopefully, you know, there might be some more money in the pot next year for this. If we can arrange that, it's fabulous. But I'd especially like to say thank you to Ian Phillips and Adrian Chapman for the amount of hard work that's gone into this, bearing in mind we've had the COVID-19 and everything else on Adrian's plate. So I would say well done. I totally disagree with what David Jenkin's saying. It was a set criteria in the beginning, how it was going to work out. So well done all.
Thank you, Jan. Councillor Machini, Elisa.
Thank you. Just very, very quickly, you know, I would like to thank Ian for all the work he's done. It's been a pleasure to sit on those panels. As a suggestion, I mean, if somebody's concerned about the transparency or the way this is reported, I mean, it's not something I particularly have picked up on as being a problem. However, we could compare, we could have a look at how, for example, the reports to this committee are structured from Innovate and Cultivate. This is something we've been doing for a while, and they've always been very well received. If there's something that they detail and that this doesn't, I mean, you could have a look and see if there's any tips you could pick up just to make it, I mean, it would make it consistent. It's not exactly the same process, but as David says, it's not really that the criteria are unclear. It's more about how the report is presented. So maybe that would help. But yeah, no, thank you very much for all the work you've done. I mean, I'm very pleased about all these communities that are getting really good projects and really good money. Only very slightly sad for those who didn't. I mean, that's always part of it. And, you know, hopefully we can have a look at how to progress with this and what we have learned and what we can do in the future.
Thank you, Elisa. Any other comments, members? So, members, I don't propose to read out the whole list again. Ian has been through them. And Nick, I think you have a record of all the abstentions that members have made, because obviously it's fair enough that they abstain if it's in their local patch. So and they've endorsed those projects. So are members happy that with those abstentions in place that we pass all of these, we endorse all of these recommendations en bloc, just save going through them individually? So we've heard abstentions from those members earlier. So unless anybody indicates, I'll assume that we approve all of these applications en bloc, having noted the relevant abstentions. So I see nobody indicating. So thank you very much, everybody. We'll take those recommendations as approved. Thank you. So thank you, members. We move on to agenda item 7, which is the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Trading Standards Shared Service Annual Report. And we have Head of Operations, Catherine Paulson. Welcome to the committee, Catherine.
Thank you.
Perhaps you'd like to present the report to us. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. Well, good morning, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to attend your meeting this morning. My name is Catherine Paulson, and as the Chairman said, I'm Head of Operations for Trading Standards. I took over the role on the 1st of April this year, which was a very interesting time to take over. But I actually joined Cambridgeshire Trading Standards back in October 2003. So my knowledge of the service goes back a long way. As you'll be aware from the paper, the shared service was formed in April 2017. And at that time, it was agreed we'd bring a paper to scrutiny committee every year by way of feeding back to the County Council on what we've delivered for Cambridgeshire during the 12 months previously. And given we have changed from the Economy and Environment Committee last year into the Communities and Partnerships Committee, I thought it'd be useful to also give you just a very brief overview of what we cover in trading standards, as well as picking out the highlights from the year just gone. So in terms of the service overview, trading standards has a very broad remit. We cover over 200 pieces of legislation, but generally it falls into the following categories. Firstly, food standards, and for food standards we look at labelling, description, weights and measures, and more recently allergens information. And we look at businesses across that business sector, from those manufacturing and producing foods, those packing and labelling foods, those retailing foods, and those running restaurants and other types of eateries. We also look at livestock feed, and that's to ensure that when animals ultimately go into the human food chain, they haven't consumed anything in their lifetime that would jeopardise health. And again, we look at the spectrum of businesses in terms of those who produce animal feed, from the manufacturers to those farms who are producing their own food for animals. And when we do farm inspections, we have a look at what those farmers are feeding their animals day to day. Carrying on with the animal theme, we are also responsible for animal welfare. So we have to check that farmed animals are being cared for humanely and that their basic needs are being met. And unfortunately, we've had a number of prosecutions in recent years for breaches of this. And we're also very importantly responsible for animal disease at a local level, the likes of foot and mouth, which we saw had a devastating impact on rural communities a few years ago. So as part of our farm inspections, we check the disease control measures that are in place on each farm. So we look at movement records and ear tags and the like, so that if a disease crops up, we're able to quickly identify which animals have been into contact with those in that infected herd, and can very quickly lock down potentially infected farms to try and reduce the spread of the disease. We're also the main regulator responsible for product safety within the consumer market, and this can cover safety issues with virtually anything you could buy as a consumer. So just to give you an example of some of the things we've looked at over the years, we've looked at phthalates in children's toys. These are particularly nasty chemicals that can have a long-term impact on child's health, including their long-term fertility. We've looked at unsafe hoverboards, teddies with loose seams, meaning that babies and young children can pull out the stuffing and potentially choke on it. Substandard motorcycle leathers, which wouldn't give the motorcyclist the protection they anticipate if they were in an accident. Collapsing playpens and chemicals in babies' leather slippers. So it's a very broad remit product safety work. We're also responsible for safety at sports grounds. So we're responsible for ensuring that spectators are safe when they visit regulated grounds within the county. And this includes looking at things like the capacity within the stands and ease of exit in an emergency. It's very much a partnership approach that we take. So the fire service, the police service, the ambulance service, highways, environmental health and trade waste services are all involved in assessing the safety of those premises. We have a number of inspections and meetings during the year, so those are continually kept under review. And if we're all happy with the safety measures in place, it's for this authority to issue the safety certificate, which enables the sports grounds to open. And all of these measures are in place to prevent another Hillsborough disaster. We're also responsible for fair trading, which is probably one of the things Trading Standards is best known for. Generally speaking, this covers the criminal behaviour within the business sector. So rogue trading, money laundering, false descriptions, pricing and pressure selling, those kinds of things. And again, this can cover such a broad remit that we use a matrix to determine which cases we're able to take forward to an investigation stage and which we need to put forward for further intelligence gathering to see if it's indicative of a larger issue. We are responsible for the licensing of petrol stations and businesses who wish to sell explosives. Both these products pose quite serious safety risks to consumers if they're not stored and managed appropriately. So we carry out inspections during each year to check the safety at those premises before issuing licenses. And finally, weights and measures. We carry out quite a focused projects on weights and measures each year. Most recently, those have included testing weighbridges and also heating oil tankers. So that's a very brief overview of what we cover. In terms of highlights from this year, one thing I did forget to mention in my report was in September, we were the finalist in the Association for Public Service Excellence Awards under Internal Service of the Year, Trading Standards, Environmental Health and Regulatory Service. This is related to the work we do to tackle rogue traders and other businesses that prey on the vulnerable. And it reflected our multifaceted approach to identifying, tackling and preventing these crimes. This year we've successfully prosecuted 2 rogue traders and a money launderer who was also involved in rogue trading, and other rogue trader and money laundering cases are awaiting trial. Prosecution was also brought for car clocking, and an illicit tobacco prosecution is also in the pipeline. Prosecutions have led to us recovering over £52,000 in compensation for victims through the courts. And when coupled with our early intervention work to try to prevent money being handed over in the first place, we've managed to stop around £100,000 falling into the hands of criminals. And it's worth mentioning, we also carry out proceeds of crime investigations into many of the criminals that we investigate, with a view to clawing back the proceeds of their crimes. In terms of our food standards work, the service prosecuted a well-known hotel in Cambridge this year for breaching allergens requirements following the hospitalisation of a guest. And what's vitally important is the media coverage we get from cases like this, reinforcing to local businesses how vital it is to get this information correct, to keep their customers safe. And allergens compliance forms a key part of our food work in terms of our programmed work. When it comes to business advice, the service was recognised in the National Office of Product Safety and Standards Awards for Regulatory Excellence, being a finalist in the category for its work on primary authority advice. The Office of Product Safety and Standards went on to list the service as one of the top 10 providers of primary authority advice in the UK, and has asked our team leader to speak at several national events that they've held. And this is very good for our reputation nationally, and it also gives confidence to businesses that we're a good organisation to partner with. The Better Business for All agenda really got off the ground this year with a very successful, well-attended partner launch event and the production of some superb video and animation materials for local businesses. And going forward, we're confident that being part of this initiative will positively influence the way we work as regulators, and also give our advice service more of a platform within the business sector, so that more businesses approach us for advice. One of the things I'm keen to do is to reach more SMEs with our business advice services. In terms of animal disease, which I mentioned briefly earlier, every 3 years we hold an exercise to test our animal disease contingency plan. This year, the disease we chose was foot and mouth outbreak, and we brought in resilience managers from the Animal and Plant Health Agency, who would be coordinating the disease response at national and regional level, to simulate the actual directions they'd be giving to our authority in the case of a foot and mouth outbreak. The plan was very effective, and I think more than anything, we all gained a greater understanding of the vital importance in carefully managed communications and the impact that can have in controlling and eradicating a disease. And carrying on the award theme, the team also won Team of the Year for Peterborough City Council last year. And just very briefly, just to give you a recap on the work the team's been doing on COVID-19, the team has really rallied to support the corporate efforts to respond to COVID-19. 3 of our officers were redeployed full-time, one to one of the 3 hotels in Peterborough housing the homeless, one to the county-wide coordination hub, which I think you're very familiar with, supporting shielding individuals within the county, and one working to provide personal care for adult social care for Cambridge residents. Our product safety officers rapidly upskilled to be able to support the procurement of PPE corporately. Usually PPE is covered by the HSE because it's usually business to business transactions, but with the skills and knowledge our officers already had from their product safety work, they're very quickly able to pick up skills in this field and advise the procurement team accordingly. So that would involve checking the background of the business to check they were legitimate business. We looked at the certification and the test certificates for the products being offered and the labelling to make sure it all complied with the standards necessary to keep our staff safe. And then again, we examined the products when they arrived to make sure the products fitted the description given to them before purchase. Our investigations team have also scoured the internet periodically looking for fake or ineffective non-compliant PPE locally. We're aware that there was large amounts of this on the market early on in coronavirus, so we've taken care to identify any businesses in Cambridgeshire that might be selling those. Thankfully, we've found very few, but we found a number of businesses selling it from elsewhere in the country and made appropriate referrals so that they could be dealt with. Our business advice team also played an important role in advising businesses whether or not they could open following the business closure legislation. There were a few grey areas in the legislation, so it was really helping those businesses that were left unclear to know whether it was possible for them to open or not. And we also had a very good relationship and continue to do so with environmental health, who were carrying out the enforcement in terms of business closures and also assisting businesses with social distancing and hygiene advice. And finally, we established the COVID business support pages for the County Council's website, where we provided details of the range of funding that was available for businesses, both nationally and locally. It provided advice on the business closures and how to get help and advice from trading standards, advice on social distancing and hygiene with links through to the districts for further advice on that. And we also developed a range of FAQs on the kind of compliance issues that businesses were facing as a result of COVID-19, helping them to understand how they could respond and overcome those issues. Unfortunately, we aren't able to get the earlier figures for hits on the site, but since the 1st of May, it's had over 1,200 hits on that particular page. So I just wanted to finish by saying I think I've managed to share my contact details and those of my management team with you. If not, I think Nick will shortly be able to do that, so that you're able to contact me or any of the team with any inquiries you might have to assist your constituents. We also usually give an open invitation for members to come and shadow our work, whether that be enforcement work or our routine inspection work, to learn a bit more about the service. Coronavirus is proving a bit tricky on that front, but as soon as it's safe for us to do so, we will extend that offer to you, and we'd be very happy to take you out to learn more about the service and the way we work. So that's it from me, Chairman.
Thank you very much, Catherine. And as you said at the beginning, it's a new service for our committee. So actually the annual report and the very comprehensive commentary you've given is a very good chance for us to get some background information and start to get to grips with the service. So so thank you very much for that, and thank you for the congratulations for the successes that you alluded to earlier. So chance to comment and ask questions, members. We've got Councillor Mandy Smith. Mandy.
Thank you. Sorry, I should have at the beginning probably declared an interest that my partner's a farmer and we keep livestock. So, you know, apart from that, it is a very interesting report and there's obviously a lot going on. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mandy. Councillor Nieto, Lena.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, no, I just wanted to say to Catherine and to, I think, to the rest of the members of the committee that trading standards, you know, they provide a vital service, and I think I think residents in general, they do take it up for granted. You know, some of the things that the work that trading standard does is it prevents a lot of issues that could have a great impact on people's life. So I just wanted to welcome the report and just yeah, highlight the importance of the work that this service does. I also just wanted to ask if there was a possibility of doing, because Catherine mentioned that there is going to be kind of some more work with SMEs and on other businesses, and I know that we have potentially kind of a steering group on economic recovery or some other work there. So I'm just wondering if there could be, if there's an opportunity there to do some joint work between the service and I don't know if that's led by the Economy and Environment Committee, but maybe there's an opportunity there.
Yeah.
And then I just wanted to ask, on the report there is the performance table, and we have seen kind of a decrease on the first couple of points there on performance. So I just wanted to find out why that has, why. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks. Over to you, Catherine.
Thank you. Yes, I actually sit on the economic recovery subgroup, which is leading the county-wide recovery, chaired by the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority. So I'm monitoring how those things are developing. We're looking at the high-level strategy at the moment, but I'm monitoring carefully where we think business support needs will be coming out of that. So the kind of sectors that they're expecting to be hardest hit going forward, and also those new sectors that are emerging as developing sectors, and perhaps, you know, giving new future employment opportunities to those who have been displaced from other sectors who have suffered, to see if we can put in place support for both ends of the spectrum. And I think a lot of that will pick up the SMEs on that front. The Better Business for All agenda has also brought us closer with the Chamber of Commerce, the FSB, and other local organisations. So I think by developing that agenda, I'm hopeful we can also reach more SMEs longer term through those new links and partnerships. So I hope that answers your first question. Going on to the second one, I agree there's been some slippage in performance on two of the points. I think slightly one of the causes, although I can't, it's not certainly not the total cause, is we changed database halfway through the year. So we did have a separate database for Cambridgeshire and a separate one for Peterborough. We did a lot of work to merge those databases, which caused a bit of disruption at that time to the recording on those systems. But to address it longer term, we're bringing in a monthly auditing programme, coupled with, we've got 2 training sessions coming up in the next fortnight to provide officers with more training on recording. So I think going forward, we will be able to push the performance back up to where it should be.
Thank you, Catherine. You said we're merging the databases, but we'll still be able to see Cambridgeshire and Peterborough as individual areas.
Absolutely. Good. Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
Right. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much for that. So any other indications, members, any other comments or questions? Can't see anybody indicating. So thank you, Catherine. So the recommendation is to comment on any aspects of the service being delivered by the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Trading Standards on behalf of Cambridgeshire County Council. So Is everybody happy that they've had a chance to do that? If nobody indicates, then I'll assume we are all happy with that recommendation. No one indicating, so we'll take that as approved. Thank you very much, and thank you, Catherine, for your presentation.
Thank you.
So members, we move on to item 8, which is any updates from community champions. Very difficult times at the moment, but if any of you'd like to just give a quick update to the committee. I'm aware Councillor Every has submitted a written report to Nick, so that will go in with the minutes. Councillor Costello, Adela.
Yeah, hi. I don't know how long I'll be. There's someone next door chopping down trees, so.
Oh, we can hear you okay.
Yeah, that's all right then. Just really wanted to say it's great to see that the libraries are opening again. However, because it's limited opening hours, it's still, and we use them a lot for essentials by Sue. So I'm hoping that in September, when the schools return, I don't know what the plan is, but hopefully the libraries will be more accessible so that we can relaunch the project. And also just to mention that I attended the first virtual meeting of the group in St Neots, DAD, which is about dementia, autism and disability, and that went really well. And they're putting together a questionnaire to go around the residents of St Neots, just to find out what the need is and what is already established and what else can be done. And they've taken up an idea I gave them, and they've gone round local shops and businesses and public buildings, suggesting that they might want to look at a dementia-friendly clock in their buildings. So that's a great start. And obviously, Liz is quite interested in sort of developing the DAD idea throughout throughout the county, through the different districts. That's it. I managed to get through without it starting up again.
Thanks, Adela, and no doubt you'll help others to adopt that initiative as well. So, and just to get back to libraries, plans are in place to gradually open up the libraries as and when it's safe to do so. So that's a watch this space, but that work is going on. So yes, hopefully we'll get more facilities and more capacity soon. Jen, Councillor French.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Yeah, I had two interested parties looking to start up time banking. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, I haven't been able to personally go and.
I'll have to call you back.
Sorry.
Can you mute, please, David?
Oops, sorry.
Yeah, so I'm not sure whether they've actually put their application in. I did advise them to get it in for the beginning of the month. So hopefully we might end up having a time banking in Finland. I know we have time credits, but we haven't actually got a time banking, so fingers crossed. I also attended, which I didn't know this place existed, Octavia Alternative Provision Academy in Wisbech. Quite amazed really to see how it is run. There was no students there, of course, but I did meet the head and the deputy head. The reason I was asked there to see if I could manage to get some kind of funding for them to supply laptops for the students so as they could actually work remotely. Thankfully, Sam Hoy, in her deputy chairmanship of Children's Services or Education, whatever she is, I believe she managed to get the funding from County Council to supply these laptops. So well done. As I say, I didn't know this place existed. It is an absolutely amazing place. I know it is an academy, and the academy is actually funded from London, which is a shame. I think they're probably missing out from some. So well done, County Council, for helping to assist. And I believe there is only about 35 students, 12, I believe 12 from Wisbech, 7 from March and Ely, etc. So it is across the county. So well done.
Thank you, Jan. Councillor Machini, Elisa. Did you want to come in, Elisa?
Yes, sorry, I didn't unmute. Just to say, progress has been only very slightly slow this month because quite a lot of the city officers are going on leave. However, there was a question last month, and I am pleased to report that we've been able to work so that the city area committees are going to meet again in September, and it will be a very useful forum for us to do our work in the season that's coming up.
Thank you very
So
much,
that's it.
Alisa. Thank you. Any questions, members, for our community champions? No, okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on then to item 9, which is the Communities and Partnerships Committee agenda plan. Adrian, any changes to the agenda plan?
Thank you, Chairman. No changes at all to what's been published.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions on the agenda plan, members? Okay, no one indicating as far as I can see. So the final item is appointments to outside bodies, and something has moved to within our remit, which is the Ramsey Wind Farm Community Benefit Fund Advisory Group. And the recommendations are that the 2 local members, Councillor Costello and Councillor Rogers, continue to sit on that group. So just needs our approval, members, if we're happy with that. So could anybody indicate if they are not happy with those appointments? Can't see anybody indicating. So we'll take those as made. Thank you very much. So thank you very much for attending, everybody, and watching this meeting. And thank you, members and officers, for your input. So we'll call the meeting to a close. Thank you very much. And goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.